Hello, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Einstein. Thank y'all for joining me again tonight as we do today's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, as this will be the first time hearing it or reading it right here on this podcast with you. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see how December starts out. I'm wondering if it's going to be a continuation of what we were doing last month, or we're going to start out with something new. It being the last month of the year, last set of readings we're going to go through. I'm pretty excited about it. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get into it. This is the December 1st reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. Indolence is the twin sister of indifference. Ready action is the friend of contentment. Contentment is a virtue which becomes lofty and spiritual as the mind is trained to perceive and the heart to receive the guidance in all things of a merciful law. To be contented does not mean to forego effort, it means to free effort from anxiety. It does not mean to be satisfied with sin and ignorance and folly, but to rest happily in duty done and work accomplished. A man may be said to be content to lead a groveling life, to remain in sin and in debt, but such a man's true state is one of indifference to his duty, his obligations, and his just claims of his fellow men. He cannot truly be said to possess the virtue of contentment. He does not express the pure and abiding joy, which is the accompaniment of active achievement. True contentment is the outcome of honest effort and true living. Woo! Woo, that's a good one. I like that. I'm pulling out my phone right now to I want to I know I've had to do it on this podcast before, look up indolent. It probably the fact that my brain forgets it so much is usually pretty indicative that it's a problem I have. So I think it's lack of action. Wanting to avoid activity or exertion, lazy. Okay, yeah, I do relate to that. Not as much as I used to be fair, but I do relate to it. Or I do believe I have a vein of that running through me, to be fair. So, indolence, the intentional avoidance of action, is the twin sister of indifference. Just a state of not caring, no effort. Ready action is the friend of contentment. So I really like this reading because it gives us a couple of different perspectives to look at and where we should be resting in perspective than rather than using principles, rather than using cop outs, right? Rather than trying to avoid taking the heavy steps to right living. There's a very big difference in this. So, contentment is a virtue which becomes lofty and spiritual as the mind is trained to perceive and the heart to receive the guidance in all things of a merciful law. So, contentment is a virtue which becomes lofty and spiritual as the mind is trained to perceive and the heart to receive the guidance of a merciful law. So, contentment comes from following the guidance of truth, following the guidance of spiritual virtue, spiritual law, spiritual disciplines. So, what this is honestly talking about is saying contentment is taking the action that has been placed before you, To be contented does not mean to forego effort. It means to free effort from anxiety. That's a great distinction he makes here, actually. So he's saying it's not to be okay with how things are, it's to know that the effort you put in was what was supposed to be done. So there's comfort and contentment in knowing you've done everything you're supposed to do. You've taken every action. And if something fails or if something doesn't go the way you want it to go, you've still gotten it done. Your responsibilities have been taken care of. It does not mean to be satisfied with sin and ignorance and folly, but to rest happily in duty done and work accomplished. So we don't just sit there and say, life's good. I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to let life be what it is. Who am I to take any actions here? Right? We just become lazy and we don't take the actions to continue the purification process that's required of us. We don't take the actions to more align ourselves with God or that energy, that creation, that source, that power within us. We rest in a state of indifference to our sin, indifference to our ignorance. So contentment is not resigning yourself to a life of sin. Contentment is knowing you're taking every action to purify yourself in that work. And there's peace in that. There's peace in a job well done, right? Hard day's work. That's what they talk about for you. That's what they've always said. A man may be said to be content to lead a groveling life, to remain in sin and in debt, but such a man's true state is one of indifference to his duty, his obligation, and his just claims of his fellow man. I love that. Anyone that says they're okay living a life of sin, let's say, of ignorance and just a self-serving lifestyle that really is damaging to themselves and anyone else around them, they're really just absconding from their responsibilities of a human being and a member of society. So they're not just okay, they're actually avoiding. They're avoiding the responsibility that we've all been endowed with to embrace this life, grow in this life, to become of service to God and others. Indifference to his duty, his obligations, and just claims of his fellow men. So, really, someone contented to lead a groveling life, remain in sin and debt, is somebody that's avoiding, is somebody that's intentionally not addressing the life they're a part of. And they would rather just run from it because it seems easier. But I can guarantee you, it's one of the hardest things to do is just stay running because life will always catch up to you and you'll be presented opportunities to stop. But many pick it up still. Many just continue to run and jump on that carousel and ride it till it dies. It's so sad. But it is the truth. Contentment in a sinful, self serving life, in a groveling life, and a life of ignorance and debt is really a disservice to the rest of the world, your community, your family, your friends, because you're not giving yourself the chance to be even a small percentage of what you're capable of being, which is sad. He cannot truly be said to possess the virtue of contentment. Talking about that indifference again, that avoidance of responsibility, of duty. He does not experience the pure and abiding joy, which is the accompaniment of active achievement. Because that's really where If you're constantly just thinking about what you should be doing, what you should have done, why it didn't get done, you're coming up with excuses and reasons and da, 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 you're never going to be in a place to be present enough in a life that you can experience genuine joy, abiding joy, because that comes only from active achievement, only from taking all of the actions that you know are available to you to set things right and to grow and to continue to purify yourself in this spiritual path. If you haven't done everything you can do to get there, then you're not going to have that sense of achievement, which leads to that sense of contentment in life. You're robbing yourself of joy and happiness. You really are. I did for years. I still do from time to time, to be fair. I'm not perfect at this, but I do okay today. Now, I really like this last line. True contentment is the outcome of honest effort and true living. Honest and true effort and living, right? I always say this happiness comes from right living. And I was talking to someone recently and they said it's actually, in other verbiage, they call it right minded, which is even more important, actually, because our actions are born from our mind. So, right living, right mindedness comes our lives. So, true contentment is the outcome of honest effort. So, not just half assing it. So many of us do, not just doing a good enough job for right now when you know you could do better, but doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Honest effort and true living, living by spiritual principles, living by that different way of life. So, well, and that'll wrap it up for December 1st. This is the last first of the month we're going to have for this yearbook of meditations. I'm kicking around a couple ideas for what we might be getting into next year. So hope you stay with me to see what those might be. But we'll probably talk about them as we go forward here. But I'm looking forward to seeing where December brings us and how we conclude this year of meditations from James Allen. So thank y'all for joining me again tonight, though. I do want to say here at the end, I did buy a couple of upgrades, I guess I'll say, for my um, little studio I've got going on here. So if it sounds a little bit different, hopefully it sounds a little bit clearer and not as not such a bite to it, maybe. And that's why. So I'll take a listen after this as well and see how it went. But thank y'all for listening and joining me, and I'm looking forward till tomorrow. So until next time, thanks.